good afternoon, or whenever you're watching this. Um, Today is episode 3 of the exercise physiology exercise application assignment. So today in lecture, we kind of reviewed the energy systems yet again, and I had an epic moment where I got to go up in front of the class and draw through all the energy systems, and only messed up calling phosphoglucose isomerase a kinase by accident because I was thinking, okay, kinase isomerase. I wasn't paying attention. But so that was my cool moment. Got a round of applause. Happy about that. So then we started looking into energy systems, looking how carbohydrates versus fats are utilized. So we learned that fats are, when you're at rest, you're kind of burning more fats, just because they have to go through the oxidative phosphorylation, the Krebs cycle. And we learned about the VO2 max and the lactate threshold, and how when you're burning fats, your respiratory exchange ratio, that's what it is, the ratio of CO2 exhaled versus O2 inhaled and utilized. When you're burning purely fats, it's going to be 0.7, and then when it's purely carbs, it's 1.0. And that's because it when you burn fats, what is it? I'm trying to remember now. Burning carbohydrates, you expel more CO2. I'm fairly certain. Yes, that would make sense. Because you break down pyruvate, because pyruvate is 3 carbon, and then that's the end of glycolysis, and you chop this one off and it's expelled as CO2, and then the 2 carbons right here become acetyl-CoA and go through the Krebs cycle. But with fats, you skip that completely and you just have a chain, and you chop off 2 carbon into acetyl-CoA through beta oxidation or lipolysis. So that's why. So how does this apply to what I did today? Let me get into that. So today was triceps and upper back focused, and it was also the end of the high volume experiment. So this is kind of unrelated to what we covered in class, but I experimented. I'm a big believer in high intensity training. So I experimented with gradually ramping up my volumes, not quickly, but over the course of several months, to see if there's any merit to the volume versus intensity debate when it comes to hypertrophy. Do you have to progressively overload volume? Do you have to cycle volumes and things of that nature? And so I wanted to settle this once and for all, at least for me, And what I found is that increasing volumes over time, it's unnecessary, and all it does is just generate more systemic fatigue, and muscle gain is arguably worse from what I've noticed. I mean, I was still making progress, but progress was much slower. Did not feel like my workouts were particularly effective, but I've transitioned back to my low volume style, really looking at about anywhere from 5 to 20 hard reps per muscle group per week, and that's looking pretty good. Usually that's broken down into just, if you want to break it down into sets, that's like, could be 3 or 4 sets. Really, I count like the last 5 reps of a true set to failure as the hard reps. So it's usually about 4 sets spread across a week, usually 2 sessions per muscle. I like to do 3 on one day and then 1 later in the week, so it's kind of like big stimulus, small stimulus, but that's all tangentially related. It's just to talk about my training a little bit more. And so let's see. So if we're talking about the energy systems, again, like we reviewed, mostly phosphocreatine, a little bit of glycolytic action if I'm doing a set like today. I did my 45-degree rows, right, where I'm on the prime cable machine, and I have a big stretch, and then I'm pulling, right. But if I just did, regular set to failure, It'd probably be very much, PCR system. But once I'm approaching kind of a minute right here where I fail, then I start doing shrugs. That's kind of like a mechanical drop set. I might be getting a little bit more glycolytic. Who knows? But it's mostly PCR. But then when I'm resting in between my sets, I know now that when I'm resting, I'm really just using my fat stores. And then when I'm lifting, I'm using mostly my carbohydrate stores. And my phosphocreatine stores, of course. But when I'm resting between sets, I time my rest periods. I give myself at least 3 minutes, to allow my my phosphocreatine to ramp back up and, recover a little bit aerobically, catch my breath, burn those fats to recover in a sense. I'm not entirely sure how that works, but we're talking about lactate threshold. I reach my lactate threshold at the end of an intense set. I always do that. I always reach the lactate threshold, right? I'm not sure if this only applies aerobically or if it applies anaerobically as well, because lifting weights is anaerobic. But say I'm doing my rows like today, or doing my weighted pull-ups, right? When I get to the point that I've exhausted the PCR system, would that be lactate? Let's think through it. Would that be a buildup of lactate? The burning sensation, but there's obviously a burning sensation while you're lifting. Is that lactate? Let's consult the notes since I'm struggling with this concept. Lactate threshold. See, okay, so lactate threshold basically is saying that during moderate exercise, ATP comes from the aerobic system. Yeah, but this isn't an aerobic exercise. So I don't think, it might not apply. The lactate threshold might not apply to what I'm doing since it's anaerobic exercise. It'd have to be running or something, and then gradually run faster. And as mostly throughout the book, this type of thing is explained through running metaphors. So I'm assuming it has to be some form of aerobic exercise. But we do know that at the very least, I'm not going to make any blanket statements. Because I think that's where I'm getting myself into some trouble here and struggling to understand concepts. I should probably write down the questions I have and come to the next class asking them, if I remember. But what is it? So as exercise intensity increases, we know that carbohydrates are, used more as the fuel. Yeah, so... there's an alarm going off in the background. Don't know if you guys can hear that. My roommate just hopped in the shower and had an alarm for class, so... Yeah, okay, so... with increasing... So the crossover point where carbs and fats meet occurs due to the recruitment of fast-twitch muscle fibers, which have an abundance of glycolytic enzymes and low lipolytic enzymes, and increasing blood levels of epinephrine, which increases the phosphorylase activity, breaking down glycogen. That increases lactate production. As a result, lactate reduces the amount of fat available as a substrate. So, but does that mean lactate threshold is met through intense weightlifting? I think it does. My instinct says yes. But I'm not entirely certain. I need to ask if the lactate threshold is purely an aerobic thing. And probably if I sat here and thought through it for, 10 minutes, it would make sense. But I like clear-cut answers. But yeah, that's basically it for this episode of the exercise application assignment. I'll see you in the next one.